Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast. My name is Jackie.
And my name is Alwynn.
We're two sisters from Ireland living in Australia, navigating our healing journeys together. And this is our podcast, Let Me Be Free.
Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast, everyone. Today we're going to do something a little different. Alwynn and I decided to do a questions game that sometimes Alwynn pulls out. It's called Hygge or something similar, Hygee. Is that what it's called?
Hyggee. Hygge or Hygge.
Yeah, so it's just some fun questions that are a little lighthearted. Well, actually, we could go down some rabbit holes either way, but given that we're always talking about such heavy topics on here, we thought we'd do something a little different today. And we picked a couple of questions each. So, Ollie, do you want to ask your first question?
Yes. So my first question is, if you could pass one law that everyone would have to follow, what would it be?
I think if I could pass a law, it would probably be something to do with, like, if you're gonna have a baby, you have to do some kind of like self-therapy course, or I don't know, some kind of course where you're actually like learning more about your inner world. Because I feel like if we can understand ourselves better and our patterns, we're more likely to not pass those patterns on to the next generation. I have no idea how that would be enforceable, or, you know.
I'm just thinking about that, like, what is it? A contraception with, if there's a hole in this, you have to go to therapy, like, where is that implementable?
I have no idea. You just told me to come up with the law, not to come up with how to enforce it.
Well, I actually was thinking about how to enforce it and how it would look, and for once, for once I'm the one that's thinking a plan through. Did you say what mine one is?
Yeah, what's your one?
Well, of course, it's along the trauma lines as well. But so I was thinking about it, and I was like, what law could I pass, right? And definitely where I was going on the line was, I was thinking, do you know the way they make school mandatory? And so I was thinking, if I was to pass a law, I would make a year or 2 years, or a like 50% of each school year be dedicated to learning how trauma affects the body, trauma symptoms, emotional regulation, mindfulness, meditation, heart, pain, and all of these things. I would put them as a part of the curriculum, and then people would be enforced to and the thing is when you actually start opening up these things and looking into them and reading them and finding out about them, it actually is really interesting. Like, so I think it'd actually be a really interesting part of school, more interesting than what they're teaching at the moment. But also,
I think you find it interesting, but I'm not sure that everybody finds it interesting. I agree with you that it should be part of the curriculum for sure. And I think especially like when you get to the 12, 13 year olds, like, who can actually understand a lot more of this kind of psychological based stuff, for sure. But I'm not sure everyone's going to find it interesting.
Well, okay, they don't have to find it interesting, because they'd have to do it anyways, and they'd be forced to do it. And also, then it would also bridge the gap between what children are experiencing at home. And so parents would be less likely to keep their own demons and crap in the closet, because they know that their children are being educated about it, about trauma, about all these signs and symptoms of when you're experiencing something that isn't positive. But I want to say, the reason why when I thought about this, I listened to this podcast, and it was these three guys. They started doing this program where the teachers, instead of the teachers sending the kids to detention, they were sent to the mindfulness room, and it was, so they started doing it, and they said initially, like, there was a lot of the teachers that were like, they're just bad kids, this isn't going to reach them, it's not going to work. But they said that when they went back to these schools, after these programs being implemented for a period of time, the attendance rate had increased dramatically. The the aggression and the fights and everything that were happening, and violence in the school had decreased by like 50%, and there was a lot more camaraderie and just a more of sense of community, because instead of being punished for their feelings or their emotions, they were being sent to a space where they could just go inwards and figure out what was going on with them. And I thought it was just fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. My turn.
Yeah.
If you could have a million of anything except money, what would it be?
A million of anything. Yeah, I think this one's a really interesting one, because I know we asked this before, and I think this is I guess I'm tripping over my words because I'm going to sound like a bloody druggie, but I would probably pick a
You're
million.
afraid to give your answer.
What?
You sound like you're afraid to give your answer.
Well, if I could have a million of anything, it would probably be MDMA. I would have a million MDMA, because at least I know I would never, ever, ever run out, and I would have the capacity to help people. I don't know how that would work though, because it would have to be like out there floating in the sky where it's not actually my responsibility or something like that, because of the laws that we have. But mainly because I found that throughout my healing, I think that the hardest part of it all was when I couldn't break through these trauma symptoms or these patterns or the suicidal thoughts or ideation, whatever. And always knowing that MD was there as a helpful hand to move through these deep wounds, felt and has always been like, what's that word? Where you feel safe because it's there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know what the word is, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I think I picked that because money is really useless if you can't pick it anyways. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say, did I answer the last question? I'm already forgetting what we've talked about.
No, you did answer the last one.
So if I could have a million of anything except money, it would be a million people who would be willing to help me bury a dead body. And what I mean by that is, it's only really the most loyal of person who's ever going to be willing to help you bury a dead body. Like, there's absolutely no way that anybody's doing that for you or with you unless like they are 100% dedicated and loyal to you. By the way, would you help me bury a dead body?
Do you know, I feel that there's a possibility that you could have just answered that question by saying a million loyal people who would be there for you no matter what, instead of inserting the dead body, because I feel like
I just feel like you can say a million loyal friends, but it doesn't really get to the same depth that if someone is willing to help you bury a dead body, like, I feel like that really is loyalty. And if they're willing, if you have a million people like that in your life who are that like loyal and are there for you, it means that you've got so many people that no matter what you're experiencing in life, whether, one of those people is going to be a doctor, one of them is going to be a lawyer, one of them is going to be a teacher, one of them is going to be, like, you're always going to have people who you can go to, no matter what situation you're in. Like,
I think you need all of them with the dead body. I get what you're saying, though. I totally get what you're saying. Like, I think that's, it's so true. Like, to have people that, are there in your corner and are there for you and that you can trust, because you have to trust someone with your secret as well, So
yeah, exactly.
I feel like where these people are might be borderline sociopathic, though, if they're happy to bury their body. But, at least they're loyal.
But yeah, I think you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people who have your back, you really got nothing, So for me, everything is always about like having a community of people who you can lean on and support and get support from and trust. And yeah, I definitely feel like
And I
that's the
love,
best currency.
you know what I love? I love that, you know, doing these questions as over the time that we've been doing these questions, I love the answers because there's like so many times where we answer these things and I'm like, Jackie, where did that answer come out of? And you're the same with me. You're like, how could you answer that? Like in that way where it's like two totally different channels, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
and how people can have such different answers to the same question is so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one where we were talking about getting old and I just couldn't believe your your response, and Brona as well, her response on it. And I was like, what are you saying? Getting old? No, that's amazing. But anyways.
Okay, you're going off on a tangent. What's the next question?
Okay. Would there be more or fewer divorces if people could read each other's minds?
I don't know if there'd be more or fewer divorces, but if people could read each other's minds, it would definitely incentivize people to do their own inner work, I feel like. Because I feel like so many people, when they're in difficult situations, look externally of themselves. But if people can read their mind and they can see all the messed up shit that they say in their head, they're going to want to do the internal work to kind of get that voice a little calmer or nicer, or I don't know what, but I have no idea if that would increase. I don't think people would even get married in the first place.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so
read
true.
each other's minds. What do you think?
You know, I was thinking about it and I was like, I feel like there'd be fewer divorces because I feel like the main issue that we all have in this world is our fear of being authentic and true to our own minds. Because yes, we can think about the negative things that we say, but so often the negative things that we say come off the back of a pain or an insecurity, like, oh, they don't love me, he doesn't, like your partner or whoever could be saying one thing, and if your response is, oh, he thinks I'm fat or ugly, and your partner could say, I never think you're fat or ugly, you know, like, or like whatever that may be. I feel like when you strip away the mask of what it's like that filter, we put everything through that filter. But if you strip it all away, then you're just left with the core of who we are. And yeah, that can get messy as fuck, but at least, you know, initially there will be way more divorces. But I think as we went along, there'll be way less divorces because the more that people are true and honest to themselves and each other, the less that we have this issue of perception. Because I think that that's what really causes the most issues in relationships is your perceived reality of what they're thinking, saying, and doing when it actually might be completely opposite.
Yes, absolutely. Okay,
So,
we'll do one more question.
is it your turn or my turn? I can't remember.
You just pick one.
If you had enough money to retire tomorrow, what would you do for the rest of your life?
I think my answer to this is going to surprise you because it's going to be so different to anything I think I've ever said to you before. Just to put it in context for the listeners, I live on 100 acres, and I'm setting myself up off grid. It's very picturesque here, and I've been here, I'm not sure how long, maybe almost a year now, and it's been a lot of work because I've been setting everything up, and that takes a lot of time. And my neighbors have been helping me for most of it, and yeah, it's just been a lot of work. And if I was to like answer this question before, it was always to do with moving, like going traveling, seeing the world, doing things, go, go, go. And I feel like my answer now is if I had enough money to retire, I just don't think I'd leave this land. Like, I would just, like, I've never liked cooking, but I've started cooking recently and I find it quite relaxing. Since moving here, so many people have said, oh, are you going to like set up a little like veggie garden and stuff? I'm like, no way. There's no way. That's way too much effort. Now I'm like, oh, actually, I would like to do that. Like, I just feel myself really slowing down and just wanting to be here more and more and more. So honestly, like, I think if I had enough money to retire right now, I would just keep doing exactly what I'm doing right now, except all the time. Like having friends over for dinners, having people come and stay, getting the chicken coop set up so I can have chickens, getting my little veggie garden set up so I can grow vegetables. I can still do things from here, like record the podcast and anything else that I want to do just to keep my mind ticking over, which is really important. Like I do want to keep my mind active, but a lot of it I can do from here, like, so yeah, I honestly think I would just stay here and everybody would just come to me.
I think
That's
that's
what I
an
would do.
amazing answer. Like, I think that's beautiful. I think everyone that's listening will want to live there and move in with you. It sounds so dreamlike and picturesque and peaceful and
Yeah,
harmonious.
but you wouldn't. You don't want to live in the woods. You want to live beside the beach.
You know, it's really funny. I don't know what I want anymore. Like, I absolutely love the beach. I love the ocean. But like, I also just love the space. Like I loved visiting you with the kids and like I don't like, you see, I don't like the idea of it in the heat, in the Australian heat. Like the idea of being there and not being close to the ocean is like suffocating. So
Yeah.
I guess for me it will be, yeah, like I would um I would definitely have or try and move somewhere if it was a possibility. Move somewhere that has both. You know, that I would live somewhere that has a lot of land, this beautiful, like I always have this vision of the house that I would have. It's like, it's kind of like white white picket fence kind of style. But
It's very beach style Hamptons, I think.
yes, it
The
is very
white
beach
shutters,
yeah.
yeah, like the beachy colors.
I feel even that is changing. Like, I feel like that's also changing. Like, I guess if I think about what I would want to do if I had enough money to retire, honestly, I would love, like, definitely somewhere that's close to the ocean that's got space. And then I would love whether, I know I talked to you before about the idea of the mental gym, like a space, a place where lots of space and it's like a community built for people to come and and connect. And there was like, instead of it being like a physical gym, there's like a room that's like a jamming room where there's like guitars and there's music and there's a big kitchen and there's a big garden. But I don't know if that will be necessarily now. I think honestly, if I could retire tomorrow, it would be the somewhere that's close to the ocean with a lot of land. And I would love a retreat center. Like I would absolutely love that I could have my own house at the front, and then further back, I would absolutely love a space that we could build as a retreat. Because like Rob is really like opening up his own hopes as well for like maybe he can do the breath work. And I would love to build a space where people come and it's a community of healing. And it's kind of like I can be there and be with my kids, but I can also do what I love to do, which is help people um and do the work that I love to do.
Yeah.
So, but not have to leave to do it. So I think
So
that,
you wouldn't really be retiring then because you're still working.
yeah, like
But I guess you're not dependent on the money, so you can pick and choose what you want to do.
yeah, but definitely. And I would also love, like, if I think about the future, I would absolutely love to do some type of fostering, some type of that kind of work where kids can come and find a safe space.
Yeah.
Um
It's so funny, Ollie. Or both of our ideas are actually very similar. It's just that yours is beside the ocean and mine is in the woods.
yeah. Well, we can do the both because maybe we can get an ocean that's close to a woods.
I'm only like 15, 20 minutes from the ocean.
That's just
Not
far.
that far. Okay, did you have any more questions before we finish?
Yes, I have one more question that I'd like to ask. And this one is, where is it? Sorry, one seckie. If you could give one piece of advice based on your experience from the past few years, what would it be?
Oh my God, that's a hard one. Maybe you should answer it first so I have a chance to think.
Yeah, definitely. So if I could give one piece of advice, honestly, my biggest piece of advice will be find a hope, find a dream, find something in the future that you can move towards, no matter how shit your situation is, or how bad or hopeless you feel that your situation is. Figure out the type of life you want to live, figure out the type of person you want to be, figure out the type of relationships you want to have, figure out, and it's not even about figuring out, but it's just about allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to hope, allow yourself the possibility of something better, and just get really clear on that, and never let that leave your mind. Just keep on holding that in your mind's eye, because if I can think of I guess the most important part of the last few years for me, it's been this vision of the life that I believed that I could have after the pain, that I felt that really pulled me through. Like I talk about, throwing that fishing line out and hooking onto a point in the future. I just don't know how I would have made it through if I didn't allow myself to dream of a life that was worth living for.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just think that of all the advice that I could give, I honestly think that if you allow yourself to, just because so many of us are afraid to even allow ourselves to dream, allow ourselves to hope, allow ourselves to think about a life better than what we have because we don't want to be disappointed. But in actual fact, if you do that, if you allow yourself to open up your mind to what's possible, like, and I'm going to do it after this now that I'm actually saying I'll do it again, because it's like, what do I want? What do I want my life to look like? My relationships. When I wake up in the morning, what do I want to feel? Not limited by time, not limited by how much money I have. If money wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, and I couldn't fail, what would I want? And just allow myself to build that picture, because I just believe that in order to get through the darkest times in your life, I believe that you have to have some sort of anchor in the future, or belief that there's something worth fighting for.
Yeah, that's a good one. Can you hear the rain? Because it is literally lashing right now. Can you hear it?
Hear it all. No.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was like, oh Lord, I don't know if this audio is going to come through because it is pouring down and my
No,
roof
this is good.
is
I don't hear it.
great. Okay, so if we're talking about like from that perspective, like the best thing that I feel I guess I've done in the last few years, I would say for me, it was finally just going, I don't want to do this alone anymore. And I mean that for everything. Like I used to just have this mentality, like, I've just got to do this myself. I've got to fix this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this on my own. And I think a few years ago, I really just I gave up on that. And I said, that's it, universe. I don't ever want to have to do anything alone ever again. So if it's healing, I want you to send me help to help me heal. If it's setting myself up off grid in the forest, I want you to send me people who'll help me do that. Like, there's no way I'd have been able to set myself up without the help of my neighbors and friends who all know how to do this DIY stuff that I have no clue about. Whether it doesn't even matter how small it is. It's like, I mean, even the smallest task, I don't want to have to do anything alone anymore. I want people to be there wanting to help, and not just because it's nice to not have to do everything by yourself, but also I just feel like everything's nicer when you can do it with someone. Everything's better when you have a community or friends or co-workers, or like, it just makes everything, life, so much better when you're doing it as part of a team and a group and a community. Even for even for my future dreams, like whenever I think about anything that I said, I'm always thinking to myself, like the universe will send me the right people and it will just be perfect.
Yeah.
So
I love that answer. And I think it's a really important answer, actually, because I think so often, especially in trauma, because when we have trauma, we get used to going it alone, deal with it yourself, carry that burden, carry that weight. This is just life. And I think it is a really important point, because all of these things are conscious decisions that we make and we carry into life. Like, I know, like, your one is that one, support. And I know that you've been very much about making a point of that. And you've been great for also reminding me to be opening myself up to help and support. And you say that to me a lot, and so it's great for me because I get that reminder. And the other thing for me that has changed is I would say to the universe, I want this to be easy. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that that it's going to be easy, but there's levels on the scale of easy to hard. And I pick the hard road all the time, because that's what felt I guess familiar to me. But in the last year or so, anytime I have to do anything, or I know that there's something coming up or something's, I'm moving through something, I'll say, okay, I know I have to do this, but just make it easy for me, as easy as possible, as easy.
Yeah.
And there's even just a freedom within that, a nice feeling that, okay, I get to choose, even though it's still hard, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great one. And it doesn't mean that you're setting anything up. Like, it is literally just having that, saying, or
yes,
I don't know what you call it, but just
intention.
repeating it to the universe. Like, I want this, whatever I have to do, make it the easiest version of it. Like, if I'm doing something, make it so that I have company, make it so that I have help, make it so that I have support, make it so that I can enjoy it the most that it's possible to enjoy it, even if it's not necessarily an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, definitely. There's one more. Can I just do one more?
One more? I don't know. We've been going for 32 minutes.
If you don't add it, it's fine, but I'm really curious.
Okay, go on.
What is the greatest change you expect to see in your life in the next 5 years, if any? If you can think of the one thing that you can imagine being different in your reality in 5 years, what would that be?
Well, I think right now I'm really working on my freeze response. So there's lots of different ways that you can categorize your trauma responses. And one of them is to categorize them based on the 4Fs. So flight, freeze,
Fight,
fawn.
Freeze, fawn.
Yeah, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And within different parts of my life, I am different. But for the most part, I'm freeze. So I isolate myself. I live in a cabin in the woods. Like, there's a lot, I don't work out, I don't do exercise. I sleep a lot. Like, I am a very typical freeze response. And one of them
together, Jack. That's so interesting. I've never put them together.
Oh,
that's
really?
So because freeze isn't mine. I don't understand freeze that well.
No,
because
you're flight.
I'm fight, yeah.
You're fight or you're flight.
Yeah, I'm fight or flight, yeah.
Yeah, in different situations you're fight, and in other situations you're flight.
Yeah.
But when you're primarily like at your base a flight, I think.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. With the kids you're fight because you're trying to control them, but in general you're flight, I think.
So what would flight then show up for me from an observer's perspective? Would that
you
be
just can't stop?
Oh, yeah.
You're always going. You're always running.
Yes. But just not running, that actually will help my body get fitter. Just running around in fucking circles like a fucking chicken, pecking the floor, peck, 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 peck. Getting absolutely nothing done. Here's a dish. Let me wash the dish. Wait, there's a speck on the floor. Let me go to the speck. Back to the dish. Back to the speck. Oh.
Whereas I'm on the couch that whole time.
Like your friend said to you before, has your sister been checked for ADHD?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think ADHD, yeah, like I said, like there's so many ways we can label trauma responses, and ADHD is just another way to label it. But yeah, one of the typical parts of freeze that I fall into is I avoid romantic relationships. And there is obviously lots of reasons for that within the freeze response. And so
Wait, can you explain that a bit, Jackie? So what does freeze look like when you're avoiding romantic relationships? What does that mean?
So generally freeze comes about when a lot of the times it's the kid who has been I don't want to say, so I don't want to explain it wrong because I didn't actually like do a
No,
proper...
I mean, when you're talking about freeze in relationships, what do you mean freeze in relationships? You freeze when you see a relationship, or like how does that show up in relationships?
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I just avoid relationships. I just avoid them.
You avoid getting into relationships, and that's a freeze response because
Yeah,
you're
because I'm isolating myself. I'm isolating myself from relationships. So, you know, I feel like I've grown in many ways over the years to where now I have really close friendships. And I have that more I don't know what the word is. I've advanced or progressed a little bit in that department, but I still pretty much avoid romantic relationships at all costs. So I think now that I'm working on that, like that's kind of, we always have something that we're working on. That just happens to be what I'm working on right now. How to get myself out of a little bit more out of that freeze response. And everything is a spectrum, you know, like we all have elements of these things, and to be on that spectrum is completely normal and natural and part of life. It's just when we're too far to one end of a spectrum that it inhibits the normal functioning of our life, that we end up with these labels, right? So
So
by
Jack,
being a freeze response, the way that it inhibits my life is that I avoid romantic relationships. So when I work on my freeze response and I work on building trust, because a lot of it in the freeze response is just a complete lack of trust in other people. And a lot of times what will happen is when I am like in a relationship, and it's very typical of a freeze response, is you scare early, you scare easily, you know, like you kind of you catastrophize. And I know that I catastrophize a lot about everything, but when it's your partner and that's a very, very close relationship, yeah, when you catastrophize, you can say, okay, this is over. So I think in the difference in 5 years from now is that I'll probably be in a relationship because I'll have worked on the parts of me that are so terrified of trusting another human being in that capacity, that's how my life will change.
that's really interesting, Jack, because I honestly, because I don't have any experience of the freeze response, I don't really, like, I feel like fight and flight, they're a bit more self-explanatory. Like flight, I'm running around the place, like it's kind of like obvious if anyone looks at me, or fight, you know, with the anger and stuff. But I feel like freeze and fawn they're more difficult to kind of, well, fawn, you know, but I guess freeze, I never really thought about that freeze response in relationships. I never would have tied the both of them together. And I would definitely not have tied like the sitting or like, you know, the being on the couch or being less motivated or active in life as a part of freeze response either. Do you think that that's common? Do you think that that would be common as a freeze response, like inactivity, that unmotivated? Is depression a freeze response, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think depression is a freeze response. And like I said, it depends on what capacity I'm in. Like when I'm at work, I'm definitely a fight. Like I like to be in control. I like to make sure everything's running efficiently. I'm definitely a get shit done. Like I want to be going, going, going. And that's just who I am in work mode. So we show up differently in different capacities. But if I don't have to be at work, if there's not something I have to be doing, I will just sit on the couch all day long, and I'll beat myself up about it, but I will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I remember I experienced freeze response. Only remember last year when I had an incident, me and Rob had a whatever incident, or Rob had an emotional reaction, and my inner child just literally lost it and froze. That's the only time I actually felt in this space of freeze response. And it's so interesting. Or I don't know if it was kind of numb, but frozen. But it was just so fascinating, that response to me, because I was like, I don't know what's happening here. It was like, I just was kind of like, nothing's happening. But it was, I was like, what do I do here? Like, it was so uncommon for me to be in freeze response, that I just was like, it was just a really interesting experience for me. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And I was like, just keep on soothing. I just kept on soothing my inner child and being like, it's okay. You know, you can be fine. I just imagine myself being ice, and eventually just allowing myself to unfreeze and to melt. And eventually I went from freeze to just emotional, like wreck, whatever. But yeah, no, it was just the responses are so fascinating.
So what do you think you'll be in 5 years? What do you think the biggest difference would be for you in 5 years?
It's really interesting, but for me, I feel financials. That's what I feel. And I don't know if that's the right answer. And obviously there's no right answer, but you know me, I don't think about money. Like, as in, I don't deal with money. I don't like money. But I'm really feeling this desire recently to just, one, work on my money story, right? But there's this shift in me where I've realized it's like my whole life I felt like I was a victim to money. I didn't want to look at it, didn't want to deal with it. I was just so passive with it, like, you know, and I realized that if I think about the life that I want to live, I want to be really empowered in money. And it's something interesting. It's never something I would have said before. But I just am like, I feel like my whole life I've been a child. When it comes to money, I don't want to touch it, don't want to look at it. It's like, no, it doesn't exist. And I literally imagine myself putting my fingers in my ears and going, la, 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 no, 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 money, money, money doesn't exist. And what I really kind of see as being the biggest shift in my life, because the reality is all of the internal stuff, I work on that all the time. And I know there's no doubt that I'll be more regulated, I'll be more in my body, all of that kind of stuff is a given for me, But what I see as being the biggest shift is I want to feel and be a powerhouse, bad fucking ass when it comes to my finances. Like, I want to know my interest rates. I want to know how much money, I'm paying, how much money I'm receiving. And I want to shift this belief system that bad people are the ones who have money and control money, to I can do a lot of good with money. I just think about, like, fostering children. I think about, this has been coming up for me a lot recently. In order to do all of the good that I really want to do, I need to be in a better financial space where I'm not running from money and the responsibilities of money. When a bill comes in now, I still avoid it. Like, I still leave it there for ages and I don't pay it, even though we've money in the bank. I just am afraid of even looking at the bank accounts. And I listened to a great podcast yesterday and it was fucking amazing. And I just loved his way of looking at money. Very psychology based and stuff. And I just realized, I was like, if anything, I feel like my whole life, it's like I wanted Rob to take care of me. I was like, you take care of me and deal with the money stuff, and I'll take care of you, and I won't leave, and I'll do all the nurturing and be, the good housewife and everything that you need. And now I'm just getting to that point where I'm tired of being this child. I'm tired of being just so unempowered within my own money. I want to learn about finances. I want to learn about money. I want to learn about how to build a business. I want to learn all of that stuff for myself, because I want to shift my relationship with money, because I feel like that was really taken away from me. And I just was so afraid of it my whole life. So I see that as being the biggest shift. And with that, obviously, our external environment. So, a house that's free, or a space where I can have my retreat, all of these things, because, I'm not afraid of money anymore, So I think for me, that's where I hope to see the biggest shift.
It's so interesting. Like, we both grew up in the same family. We both experienced a lot of the same or similar trauma, but like, we both have different trauma responses. We both cope in different ways. I was saying that my major thing is going to be that I'll be in a relationship in 5 years. You've been in a relationship with Rob since you were 19 or something. Like, you literally, that's never been an issue for you. You were in a relationship when you were 19, then you got married, then you had kids. Like, relationship has never been a problem for you.
Yeah.
And then you say it's money for you, whereas money for me is no problem. Like, I make good money. I'm very analytical. I'm very driven. I'm very, like, that's just not an issue whatsoever. I feel very empowered in that space. And it's just so interesting. Like, everybody has their thing. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Like, for one person, it'll be one thing. For another person, it'll be another thing. But yeah, I just think that's so interesting.
It is. It's so fascinating, and it just is in alignment. We're all on our own path. This is what me and you really want to get across to everyone that ever listens to our podcast. Stop following the herd. Don't follow what everyone else does. Find your own path. Find your own healing modalities. Find your own way. We're here to shed a bit of light on what worked for us, but ultimately, you have your own path, and it's going to look different for every single person. So so that's really, I'm so glad I asked that last question, because I actually really got so much out of that, and I didn't know what my answer was before I answered it. So that was really, it was a lot of insight for myself as well.
Nice. Okay, sis. Well, guys, if you liked this episode, let us know, because we might throw in an episode like this to break up the different episodes on trauma.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't done so already, please join our Facebook group, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post, either anonymously or not, what's going on for you in your world. We'd also be delighted if you would share this podcast or the Facebook group with one person who you think would benefit from the information. Biala Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day. Biala Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day. Would benefit from the information. Biala Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day.
I'm receiving, and I want to shift this belief system that bad people are the ones who have money and control money, to I can do a lot of good with money. I just think about, like, fostering children. I think about, this has been coming up for me a lot recently. In order to do all of the good that I really want to do, I need to be in a better financial space where I'm not running from money and the responsibilities of money. When a bill comes in now, I still avoid it. Like, I still leave it there for ages and I don't pay it, even though we've money in the bank. I just am afraid of even looking at the bank accounts. And I listened to a great podcast yesterday, and it was fucking amazing. And I just loved his way of looking at money. Very psychology based and stuff. And I just realized, I was like, if anything, I feel like my whole life, it's like I wanted Rob to take care of me. I was like, you take care of me and deal with the money stuff, and I'll take care of you, and I won't leave, and I'll do all the nurturing and be, the good housewife and everything that you need. And now I'm just getting to that point where I'm tired of being this child. I'm tired of being just so unempowered within my own money. I want to learn about finances. I want to learn about money. I want to learn about how to build a business. I want to learn all of that stuff for myself, because I want to shift my relationship with money, because I feel like that was really taken away from me. And I just was so afraid of it my whole life. So I see that as being the biggest shift. And with that, obviously, or external environment. So, a house that's free, or a space where I can have my retreat, all of these things, because, I'm not afraid of money anymore, So I think for me, that's where I hope to see the biggest shift.
It's so interesting. Like, we both grew up in the same family. We both experienced a lot of the same or similar trauma, but like, we both have different trauma responses. We both cope in different ways. I was saying that my major thing is going to be that I'll be in a relationship in 5 years. You've been in a relationship with Rob since you were 19 or something. Like, you literally, that's never been an issue for you. You were in a relationship when you were 19, then you got married, then you had kids. Like, relationship has never been a problem for you.
Yeah.
And then you say it's money for you, whereas money for me is no problem. Like, I make good money. I'm very analytical. I'm very driven. I'm very, like, that's just not an issue whatsoever. I feel very empowered in that space. And it's just so interesting. Like, everybody has their thing. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Like, for one person, it'll be one thing. For another person, it'll be another thing. But yeah, I just think that's so interesting.
It is. It's so fascinating, and it just is in alignment with, we're all on our own path. This is what me and you really want to get across to everyone that ever listens to our podcast. Stop following the herd. Don't follow what everyone else does. Find your own path. Find your own healing modalities. Find your own way. We're here to shed a bit of light on what worked for us, but ultimately you have your own path, and it's going to look different for every single person, So so that's really, I'm so glad I asked that last question, because I actually really got so much out of that, and I didn't know what my answer was before I answered it. So that was really, it was a lot of insight for myself as well.
Nice. Okay, sis. Well, guys, if you liked this episode, let us know, because we might throw in an episode like this every now and then, just to break up the more serious therapy and
trauma based.
We might throw in an episode like this to break up the different episodes on trauma.
Yeah, sounds good.
And now we want to know what all of you out there would answer to the questions. So write it in the comments. I'll read out the questions again. Pick one or pick them all and write in the comments what you would answer to them. We asked, if you could have 1 million of anything except money, what would it be? If you could pass one law that everyone would have to follow, what would it be? Would there be more or fewer divorces if people could read each other's minds? If you had enough money to retire tomorrow, what would you do for the rest of your life? If you would give one piece of advice based on your experience from the past few years, what would it be? And the last one, which Alwynn managed to get in, was, what do you think will be the biggest change in your life 5 years from now? So pop those answers in the comment section, or go onto the Facebook page, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post on the page there what your answers would be. And or if you have any questions that you want me to ask Alwynn, or any questions that you want Alwynn to ask me, shoot them through to us or put them in the comments. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't done so already, please join our Facebook group, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post, either anonymously or not, what's going on for you in your world. We'd also be delighted if you would share this podcast or the Facebook group with one person who you think would benefit from the information. Be along, Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day.